Dietary restrictions are not the most effective way to improve symptoms in cases like autoimmune conditions, chronic illnesses. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I, of course, uh, do use food as medicine. I believe food has a huge role, our diet has a huge role to play. So, hear me out why I believe in this. So I have a client who had gone off gluten, who had gone off dairy, and a whole lot of other foods as had been recommended by her functional medicine practitioner she was working with at that time, and that made her health a whole lot worse. Her symptoms had become worse, and she started losing her hair, not getting enough sleep, losing energy, putting on weight. So this is not just confined to this particular person. This is something that I hear all the time, because, as I said, food has a huge role to play, and restrictions may not necessarily work. And I'll talk about what I mean by restrictions. So my name is Anindita, and I am a functional medicine certified health coach, and I work with and I support and guide women with autoimmune conditions reverse their symptoms using a holistic and natural approach with their bodies as their guide. So I just shared that a client of mine had actually had her symptoms becoming worse when she put in place a lot of dietary restrictions like gluten-free, dairy-free, and some other foods that she had been asked to go off, and that was not really helping her. And again, this happens to a lot of people. So if you have tried some diet and it has not worked for you, and you understand what I'm saying. And I'll start with the word restriction, right? Before I even share with you why I believe in this. So the word restriction has can have a negative connotation, right? It actually has a connection with sacrifice and deprivation. So typically when we say that we are following a particular diet, even the word diet can be actually construed negatively by many people, because typically when we talk about diet, it's mostly about what we are not going to be able to eat, right? So that's where it is. So and it's all about depriving ourselves from all the foods that we love. So if we love the breads, if we love the pastas, if we love coffee, if we love alcohol, sweets, right, all the things that we have been craving and we are not able to have, so it's about deprivation. So, and focusing on what foods to avoid all the time can actually make people very stressed, right? So, and this happens. I see it all the time, this is and of course, especially then when you're dealing with a severe illness like an autoimmune condition, and that it's going to it's supposed to help you in some way, and it doesn't, then it can lead to feelings of depression, anxiety, and even guilt. And primarily, what happens is that a lot of times, if we don't get the support that we want, if we don't get the encouragement that we want, we are going to slip up. We are going to slip up anyway, but especially if there is no encouragement, no support. So it's very natural that we will not be able to stay on track, and that sort of just piles. The guilt starts piling up, and that's not helpful at all, right? In whatever sense. So this. And the idea of restrictions can also be very daunting for people who have already tried and made significant changes, right? They have made changes and they have already changed their lifestyle. They have, they have already stopped going out, and they maybe have been forced to make those changes, right? So typically in conditions like autoimmune diseases, many people are forced to give up things that they used to love. So whether they used to love dancing or running or jogging or hanging out with their friends, socializing, they are anyways forced to give up all that. Now, if they are also asked to give up foods that they love, it's really, it feels really unfair, right? So what happens is, so that's the reason that restrictions may or may not really be the most effective way for many people, and I find that I now believe that it's not in the sense that we use the word restrictions, in the sense the approach that we take towards it. And also, last but not the least, there are many other lifestyle factors which are also at play, whether it's stress, whether it's exercise, whether it's sleep, which can also, which are also major contributing factors to disease, this kind of a disease progression. So if those are not addressed, in any case, we may or may not see results, even with changes in our diet, right? So with all of this, without addressing the underlying deficiencies, bringing our, underlying causes, addressing them, bringing our bodies, hormones back into balance, we may not see much of a difference, right? So which is why dietary restrictions may not work at all, right? And may not be really effective. But what is effective is, of course, now whether we want to use the word restriction, but what is effective is, more effective is focusing on things, focusing on nutrient dense whole foods. That is effective. Focusing on having a variety of primarily plant based foods, that is effective. Focusing on healthy fats, healthy proteins, like starting your day with the protein. All of this certainly works, because this is giving our body what it needs, the nutrients that it has been craving. And in a sense, when you start seeing the results, that makes you feel even more empowered and more confident that you will be able to do something about your health. So this crowding out approach, or on the reverse, it can be crowding in. So you adding in things that are are going to help, are going to be beneficial, automatically starts removing out some of the things that are not so great for us, right? So for example, I tell my clients that what you need to do is start increasing the amount of vegetables that you're consuming, right? So automatically, as we start increasing the amount of vegetables, because they contain a whole lot of fiber, whether the nutrients and all, of course, are coming in, but of course, if they have a whole lot of fiber, what happens is that we start feeling more satiated and full. And if we add to it healthy proteins and fats, that certainly adds to our satiety, so we feel content, and automatically our craving for other foods go down. And as our body gets what it needs from these kind of foods, and our taste buds change over a period of time, we actually really start enjoying these foods. It might be hard to imagine that, because we might be craving for dairy and as I said, the minute that we actually focus on the restriction part of it, like we are giving up the butter, the cheese, and the milk that we have been consuming for so long, and it actually has an effect on our brain, particularly the neurotransmitter dopamine, which gives us like a small hit. We know that now, gluteomorphins and casomorphins, right, from gluten and dairy. That's what makes it feel so nice when we have these kind of foods, even though they are not really great for us, right? And especially in the case of autoimmune conditions, we know that gluten is a major contributing factor. So we need to get off these foods, but we feel good after having it. So how can we give this up? And as I said, when we only look at the restriction part of it, it can really feel unfair. So focusing on certain things can be really helpful. So these are 4 things that you can focus on. Instead of focusing on the restrictions, like all the things that you're not supposed to have, start focusing on all the things that you can have and you should be having, like all the nutrient dense whole foods. So again, all the plant-based foods, which are your vegetables and fruits, healthy proteins, healthy fats, nuts, seeds, all of the good stuff that your body needs, and it's going to help you start creating health, right? So it's very different from the process of treating disease. That's a very conventional medicine approach. In functional medicine, which is a system that I follow, where we talk about a systems biology approach, where we have different systems, so that comprises of organs, hormones, neurotransmitters, there are all different systems that we have, and they're constantly talking to each other, right? So you're focusing on that kind of an approach, then it makes a huge difference. If we know that food makes a huge difference, right? And the second thing is that also focus on the positive impact of these nutrient dense foods, apart from only on the symptoms, right? So of course symptoms are a big factor here, especially if you are dealing with a bucket load of symptoms. But also focus on the cognitive, whether it's your energy level, whether it's your cognitive function, whether you are, you have better thinking. That's a big one, actually. I find that many of my clients, when they start seeing results like that, they're thinking clearly, they're able to make better decisions, in a long time. That's a huge change for them, right? They feel so much better, so much more empowered and confident after a very long time. So that's the positive impact. So focusing on that. The third thing is that again focus on all the variety of foods that you can eat, rather than again only the foods that you need to avoid. So rather than saying that I need to avoid all gluten products, all refined processed foods, these kind, all dairy products, these are the three main buckets. What you can focus on is what are the things that I can have. So all the millets, are in front of you, whether it's your sorghum or jawar or bajra, nachni, all the different pearl millet, I forget all the other names, but all the millets are gluten free, whether it's your quinoa, all the leafy greens, so all the nuts and the seeds, and if you have fish and chicken, so all of the foods that you can actually have. And especially when it comes to plants, when it comes to vegetables, you can have it almost as much as you want to. So that makes a huge difference, like moving your focus away from the things that you need to avoid into all the variety. And this is, when you start looking out for this, you will understand there's a huge variety of foods that you can have. And finally, also the pleasure and enjoyment that comes with having foods that are delicious and nutrient dense, right? It might take a while to reach there. Your taste buds might need some time to change, especially if you're used to having high salt, high sugar, highly processed foods, but you will get there if you stick to it, right? We know that. So just the pleasure and the enjoyment that we get from having foods that sustain us, food for the soul. And of course, a lot of it, as I mentioned, is not just, of course, we're talking about dietary restrictions and diet, but a lot of times we eat because we are trying to fill a gap. We are trying to comfort ourselves. We feel some negative, some kind of strong emotions that we are not able to deal with, and then we use food to sustain us, comfort us. So if becoming aware of some of these patterns that you might be having, and if you can find a way to deal with them at the same time, that's also really helpful, right? So when I work with my coaching clients, and they're primarily women with autoimmune conditions, we not only of course work on the diet part of it, but we also work on what brings them joy. We call it vitamin J. What are the pleasurable activities that they can have in their life? What are the self-care activities that they can add in? So I have to keep reminding them that it's not just about the diet, right? It's about your whole approach towards life. It's life is much more than just your symptoms and diet and toxins and all that, right? So focusing on all that makes a huge difference. So what happens when you start doing this? It's you develop a positive mindset, you develop a very different perspective, and it has ripple effect on all areas of your life, right? So you feel more confident, more energized, and you look forward to making these changes. So these changes are hard. So when you deal with this in this manner, it's much easier to then sustain these changes, deal with any challenges that come in your way, and in a word, that makes you resilient, right? So that's where we want to eventually move towards. And just remember that dietary interventions are just one piece of the entire puzzle, right? So dietary interventions is one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle. So there's so many other things that are there when you're supporting your body's own unique healing process. So whether it's your sleep, whether it's your other lifestyle things, whether it's your stress, whether it's your mindset, in your environment, the kind of toxins that you're exposed to. So all of this also play a huge role. But at the heart of it all, you have to remind yourself and remember that you need to be gentle with yourself, right? You need to give yourself grace when you make mistakes, when you slip up, because that's inevitable, right? We do make mistakes, we have the best of intentions, and then we can slip up. And if we don't have a community, we don't have somebody to guide us like a health coach, then the journey becomes even more difficult, right? So then even with somebody supporting you, it is not an easy journey at all. But celebrating your successes on a regular basis can really help to stay motivated and stay on track. And in fact, a lack of motivation is one of the most common reasons why people give up when they're trying to get their lives back on track, when they're trying to get better, especially from this kind of complex chronic diseases. So ultimately, it's about keeping an open mind and adopting a very different approach. It's easier said than done, but of course, having a right community, having somebody who's on your side, like a health coach or a practitioner, can really help you with all this. And this is a key part of my three-part framework that I follow in my coaching program, Healing from Within. So that's something that I've talked about earlier. But finally, I want to leave you with three practical tips that you can implement right now, so that you can start shifting your mindset and focus on what's good, right? And help to make this the dietary changes and even any other kind of changes that you're trying to make much easier. So the first thing is to develop a cultivate a gratitude practice. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is to keep a gratitude journal and just note down. At the end of the day is a good time to do this. All the things that you're grateful for related to your health. So whether it's that I'm grateful that I can walk without pain, or that I'm grateful that for the foods that I get to have, I'm grateful for being able to dance, whatever the case might be. So just writing down all the things that you're grateful for is really beneficial. That's the first thing. Second thing is focusing on nutrient dense foods. I know I've been repeating myself, but it's such a huge part of this whole process of health creation that I can't emphasize it enough. So just constantly thinking about foods you can't eat. What you need to focus on are all the foods, nutrient dense foods that you can enjoy, right? And as I said, your taste buds will change over time, so you will actually start enjoying it if you allow yourself to do that. And just prioritizing foods with which are high in nutrients and support your health. Experimenting, allowing yourself to experiment is a big thing, right? So I don't believe that I need to give all the recipes and everything to my clients. I do give a template. I give a lot of guidance and guidelines in terms of what they need to look out for, what they need to add, what they need to focus on in terms of foods. I also give them sample recipes, but at the end of the day, everyone has different palates, everyone has different tastes and preferences. So I believe that having the leeway and the flexibility to try and experiment with different diets plays a big role in being able to enjoy this, right? Rather than following a regimented the same 10 recipes. Of course, having that is really helpful, which is why I provide it, but allowing yourself to experiment plays a big role in making sure that you're enjoying this process. And last but not the least is something that I do with all my clients, right, usually at the beginning of our program, which is practicing mindful eating, right? Just learning how to pay attention to the foods that you're consuming, and even if you are indulging in something, especially if you're indulging in something which is outside your what you're supposed to be having. So for example, if you're not supposed to be having dairy and you have decided to have some ice cream, then allow yourself to just pay attention, see how it feels in your body, see how it feels after you have those foods, because that can give you a lot of information. And it may also most likely will help you to make a decision as to whether you want to indulge in this in the future or not, right? When you do this without, when you do this in a guilty fashion, because we often feel guilty because we know we are not supposed to have it, and when we do it in this kind of mindful manner, you can actually appreciate it, and then you realize that you don't need it anymore, right? More often than not, it will help you to realize that you don't really need it. And you can end up probably sticking to what you're supposed to be consuming. But it's a really, really simple yet powerful tool. So the three practical tips that I shared with you was keeping a gratitude journal so that you can develop a gratitude practice. Second thing is focusing on nutrient dense foods rather than constantly on what you should not be having. And thirdly is practicing mindful eating, right? So these are three things that you can start doing today. And if you would like to know more about these, if you would like more inspiration, resources, tips, I'm actually doing my own 21-day hormone reset journey right now, and I'm sharing with some tips and some resources, some product ideas, etc. inside our free private Facebook community, Healing from Within with Anindita. You can join us. It's on Facebook. The link is in the bio. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you.